shonga chuji anji podrana toksen sanji kanji konit razme shirka muzumas tunza par sawe lama namla sorate kerba sanje chua shikdanye nyamba shumla tanda sanjine manere dambe chanso loto chanso shabla sorate lame jasme janzo doje dang shirga kara pema shumnaji shenri zinga gyalwe nyuku ye tanda drupa tanjina drupara ho nanjin lame trambe kaje la kosme jaro shidro la zohe rale jana nepre tujo tuyo yurmi jivara shinji lo. Everybody give rise to bodhicitta, to benefit countless suffering sentient beings. We're going to teach again about the 37 practices of a Bodhisattva. And these are the teachings of Tokme Zangpo. He was a monastic in the 13th century. His father died when he was 3. His mother died when he was 9. And when he was 14, he took his monastic vows. He was really a great teacher. They said at one stage he had lice. People told him to get rid of his lice, but he refused. He said he wouldn't hurt a single being, that they must go of their own accord. And at that time there was also a contemporary. His name was Batan Rinpoche, and when Batan Rinpoche taught, everybody laughed, left laughing. But when he taught, everybody left there crying. So he dedicated the second half of his life to bodhicitta. So these 37 practices of a bodhisattva are teachings that are used in all the schools of Tibetan Buddhism, and they are taught, and they are highly, really respected teachings. They can benefit anybody, everybody can benefit from these teachings. Most important thing is, after hearing these teachings, is then also to put them into practice. We all have this Buddha nature. It's important that we return to our Buddha nature. But we don't know it, we don't see it. Why? Because this Buddha nature is covered, it's hidden by our afflictive emotions, all of these negative emotions. So it's important that when we listen to these practices, that we also then put them into use. Otherwise, you might just be sitting here and listening to me talking, and then it's just really going to be a whole waste of time for yourselves. You might even get annoyed listening to me talking. Always, with all the practices, it's important first to practice the 3 auspicious methods. And that is good in the beginning, good in the middle, good in the end. So, good in the beginning means making the aspiration of bodhicitta. The second is good in the middle. That means doing the practice according to the practice, as taught by the teacher. And then finally is the dedication, good in the end, is dedicating all these merits for the benefit of all sentient beings. And it's important that when we listen to these teachings, that we also hear the true meaning of the teachings. We listen to them, we contemplate them, and then we put them into practice. So when we hear them, when we listen to them, we mustn't be like the 3 pots. The 3 pots is that the one is that the pot is upside down, so it doesn't matter what you pour or try to pour in the pot, it holds nothing. So in the teachings as well, don't be like this pot, so if you like upside down pot, whatever's taught you, you don't remember. Don't be like the leaky pot, so you put things in, but it doesn't retain everything, it slowly loses everything. So this is the same with the teachings. You may hear the teachings, but then you forget them. So don't be like the leaky pot or the cracked pot. And the other one is, don't be like the pot with poison in. Although the pot is fine, inside is poison. So what that is like is that we hear the teachings, but then we don't actually practice according to the teachings. We transform the teachings to what we feel the teachings should be. It's important. Why would we listen to these teachings? Because we want to be free from suffering and we want to have happiness. And this is the same for all beings. All beings want to be free from suffering and want to have happiness. We spend our whole life conforming to certain ways of thinking of our home, our friends, maybe our work, our job, our relationships. How often do we think for the whole benefit? Maybe sometimes we think of our country, but how often do we think for the benefit of all sentient beings or for the whole world? What we do today affects others. What others do today affects us. This world is now small. Or when we say small, it's a global world. It's not like before where you had your small village and that's all you really thought about. You didn't think, or it wasn't necessary to think about what is the global effect of what you're doing. But now there's a global economy, there's global politics, there's this global environment. This environment, we really have to take great care of it. It really desperately needs us to take care and to not to harm the environment anymore. And what we're doing, when we were small, we had all sorts of ways of getting our way. So getting sweets or getting what we want. And we had all of these tricks that we'd either perform, shout or scream or sulk or try another avenue. What else can we do? And this doesn't really change that much. When we get older, we still want our things. We still want things. And we still use our tricks. Maybe we use them a little bit differently, different tricks. But the thing is that when we get older, our demands, what we want, is much greater. And so in these demands, we're looking for happiness. We don't want to suffer. But we create suffering for ourselves. We don't create the happiness that we're looking for. So sometimes what we're trying to achieve and what we are doing are actually at odds. So it's important to know, what am I actually trying to achieve and what is the right method to be able to do this. Look at all religions. Why are they there? They're there to benefit us. They're there to help us. All the religions talk about love and kindness. Problem is, why don't we have happiness as well? Why do we suffer? Because most of what we're doing evolves around our own selfishness. It's all about me. As long as I'm happy, as long as I'm okay. If I'm okay, then it's okay to help other people, or maybe not even. But if we're not okay, how many people are willing to go help other people when they're not feeling okay, or when they feel unhappy? So it's important that we do more positivity and we do less negativity. The selfishness is like if you take a big piece of A5 or A3 piece of paper and you put a black dot in the middle, and in that black dot, you say, what is that black dot? And that's this black dot is just our selfishness. We just think of ourselves. There's so much space, so much more to think about. There's so many other people in the world, but we're so concerned and so concentrated on just ourselves, our own happiness, or making sure that we ourselves don't suffer. So just like a little dot in that big, vast piece of paper, or in this big, vast universe, we think that we're the center of the universe, or certainly we act like it. So it's important to do more positive deeds. Increase our wisdom, increase our compassion, increase our loving kindness. And then when we change, the world starts to change. We become happier. Life becomes more meaningful. We feel that life has got blessing and we benefit others as well. So it's very important that we have a balance between the spiritual world and the mundane world. Even more so, concentrate on the spiritual world, if you can. Buddhism doesn't mean that you have to become a monk, doesn't mean you have to dress like me. It means that you practice, just like in the church. In the church there are the priests and then there's the lay people. So the lay people don't have to dress like the priests, but they do practice. They practice the teachings of Christianity. So the same with the Buddhism. There might be monks and nuns, but they're also the lay practitioners, the people that still listen to the teachings and practice the teachings of Buddha. It's not there to give us extra things to do, not make us life, to limit us. When we were small, if somebody said, don't do this, don't do that, we think, why are you trying to limit me? Or when we're younger, as soon as somebody said, don't do this, then we'd make a point of going to do that, just to check it out. All of these that they say, don't do this, don't do that, is to help us so that we don't fall into ways that cause a lot of suffering. If we kill, or if we steal, enter into sexual misconduct, if we slander or lie, it creates problems. It causes suffering for ourselves. Might feel good at the time, but later on there's great suffering. So there's a lot of wisdom in there. And it's not always just don't. The best is to do. What to do is to benefit others, to save lives, to protect people, to be generous and kind, and to be honest and truthful, and speak about the good things about people, etc. They're the 10, but I've only mentioned a few of the do's or don'ts. So they're there to help us. And these teachings are also to change our ways. We're used to conforming to these different ways, so we think of different ways. It turns our ways of thinking upside down. Different ways of thinking. We don't have to think the way we used to. Or the way we used to. Is it the most beneficial? Just like computer software. Is the computer software still beneficial for what we're trying to achieve? And if we stop doing negative, then our life really becomes better. It really becomes much, much happier. So it's important that we start to investigate. What is the meaning of life? What is meaningful life? What should we be doing? What is the best way? How is the best way to spend this life? And there's many schools of thought. Investigate them, have a look at them, and see which one do you think is the best, the most appropriate for what you're trying to achieve. We don't have to be so one-dimensional. So often we're very one-dimensional in the way that we're thinking. And when we become unhappy sometimes, we think, oh, if only I would just die. Rather think, instead of forgetting about how many other wonderful things there are around us. There's the different schools of thought. There's different ways to think, different ways to view the world, have different perspectives to the world. But we think it's just as long as I'm unhappy. If I'm unhappy, then we think it's the end of the world. We look at the world. Many people concentrate so much on this material world. When we at school, when we were younger, what were we taught most of the time? We're taught, have a good job, relationships, get a good degree. A lot of the media emphasizes materiality. So this is what many people aspire to. Not people tell us how important it is to look after our mind, to look after our emotions. And how do we embrace this world? How do we live in this world? Everything goes through our body, speech and mind. This is how we experience the world. And what is the boss? Which is the boss? Is the mind. The body and the speech, they listen to the mind, they follow the mind. So most important is to watch what we're thinking. If we watch what we're thinking, then there's a good chance to stop us from doing things that are hurtful or negative with our body or our speech. So the practices can be very simple. They can be really very simple. But they can be of so much benefit. They can be of great benefit to ourselves and to others. So it's important that we put them into practice. Many people understand these practices. They understand these teachings. But very few people really do put them into practice. Or even able to put them into practice. Why? Because sometimes they choose not to. They choose not to apply themselves to these teachings. Often looking at other people, criticizing other people. Look at what they're doing. What are other people doing? What has it got to do with us? Rather, transform yourself. Change yourself. Stop always looking to look at everybody else. And then bring about inner peace in yourself. When you change yourself, really, the world around you starts to change. And if we want world peace, how are we going to have world peace if there isn't inner peace? So first start with your own inner peace. And then do your best to help others to follow in this way. Then there's a greater impact. There's more hope of having world peace. But at the moment, people are so stressed. They're working very hard. People really work very hard. What are they working for? They're working to be happy. They don't want to suffer. But again, is it attaining the goals that they want to achieve. So channel your energies in the right direction. If you're going to work so hard, at least make sure that what you're working so hard for is actually helping you achieve the goals that you want to achieve. Is it the right path? Is it the right way? Otherwise, it just ends up and causes unhappiness or disappointment, or we just create more unhappiness, more suffering than we actually thought we would, then we don't get the goals that we're trying to achieve. But it takes practice. It takes time to practice, to transform. It doesn't just happen overnight. It takes time. When we change the habits, change our habits, it takes time. It also feels uncomfortable. When we start something new, something different, often it feels uncomfortable. So these changes we can be very enthusiastic, and that's the best approach, but we may also feel uncomfortable. Just like when we go to gym. When we go to gym, we start picking up the weights, we start training, we go running, we look at what everybody else is doing. They're picking up much more than us. They're much fitter than us. They can run faster, longer than us, or train faster and longer than us. We feel a little bit embarrassed. We try harder. The next few days we feel maybe very stiff. But we know, why do we carry on? Because we know that there's great benefit in being fit and being healthy. So we persist. And then slowly the benefits start to come through. They start to manifest. And this is the same with the practices. After a while, after practicing, we start to see the benefits. We start to look at ourselves and say, wow, what was I like before? Before, so different. And we can even laugh at ourselves. Think, wow, what was I thinking before? But to do this also, it's also good that we go to people to help us, to people that really know what they're talking about, like Rinpoche, really great teachers. So it's important that we change these habits. It's the same as you go to physio. Go to physio, maybe you've got a muscle tear. They do a lot of friction and they rub that muscle, they break it down again, and it's really painful. But then afterwards it re-heals and it's better again. Or like learning a language. We learn a language, we think, oh, I'm never going to be able to learn this language. But we do learn a word a day, a few words every day. And after a year, suddenly, oh, it wasn't so bad at all. We can speak the language. We're getting better. So it's important that we practice and embrace these practices with enthusiasm. Also, the enthusiasm is going to drive us. If we approach them with a negative attitude or without any enthusiasm, it's going to be difficult to continue. But if we have enthusiasm, we've got a lot of energy to go forward and to carry forward. And if things go wrong, don't be surprised. Sometimes things go wrong. We get used to things going right, so we get unhappy when things go wrong. There's so many causes and conditions that have to come together so that things can happen properly, that they can go right. For instance, we might drive and have a meeting. We go to the meeting, but there's a traffic jam. Anything can happen. Or if we're going to catch a train, but if you think catching a train, somebody has to come to work on time. There have to be no problems along the way, no problems with the train. You know, anything can happen. There could be an accident on the train line. Anything can happen. And so this is what happens. There's many causes and conditions that need to come together for things to really be able to happen, to work the way we want. And also, when we're dealing with people, people have different ideas. The more people there are, the more different ideas there are. So there's more chance that there's going to be that people are going to have a difference in opinion, or people aren't going to do it the way you expect things to be done. So what's it important in these practices as well? It teaches us to embrace hardships, to embrace difficulties. In this way we have two positives. When things are going well, it's great, wonderful. And when things are hard or difficulty, wonderful. This is an opportunity to practice. It's an opportunity to learn. It's an opportunity to check. How are my negative emotions? How well have I transformed them? Sometimes a a problem is just the face of wisdom. Often that is the case. So, compassion has no enemies. Treat everybody with loving kindness and compassion. And these are the teachings of bodhicitta, of a bodhisattva. They're very, very important practices, especially for practicing the great Mahayana. And for this as well, and the great perfection. Treat everybody according to the 6 parameters. Practice. Treat everybody with generosity, with patience. Patience is sometimes very difficult to practice. And as well as with patience, do this with diligence. Practice with diligence. Be dedicated and have discipline in what you're doing. A lot of concentration, and really apply what you're doing with great wisdom. It's important, as we said earlier, that we change ourselves. It's very difficult to change other people. It's very difficult to change this whole world. But what we can do is change ourselves. So work with yourself. Change yourself first. If you hear the teachings, go and tell everybody everybody else what they must do. Do it yourself first. And then other people start to see, wow, this is really valuable. This can really benefit. And then, as we say, the rest of the world, our world around us, the way we treat the world, changes. Turn this thinking upside down. Think differently. When we do this, then we have more chance for inner peace, more chance for world peace. We try to benefit ourselves, and some people do it at the expense of others. This is a very, very grave thing to do. It causes a lot of unhappiness for others and for yourselves. Sometimes we talk about cause and effect, and why are we in the position we're in? Because of cause and effect. Sometimes we see rich people getting away with this. They say, but why should we do it like this? Look at those people, they're getting away with it. Maybe now it looks like they're getting away with it. But in the future, then they're going to suffer for what they've done. It's going to cause problems and unhappiness. There was a story of a monk, or a few monks that were walking around, and one day they saw a hunter, and the hunter had just shot a deer. So they all started reciting mantras for the poor deer, except for one monk. He started reciting for the hunter, and the other monks stopped him and they said, "Why are you reciting for the hunter?" And he said, "Because the deer's causes and conditions have ripened, and that's why he's got the suffering now. But the hunter's causes and conditions are still going to ripen later. Suffering is still going to come." What's the way we're thinking? You know? How often do we blame others? We really do. Sometimes we lose something. We put something, we can't find it. Where's my phone? Where's my wallet? And we look and we say, where's it gone? Who took it? Who are the people that have been here? I remember there was that person and there was this person. Maybe it was that person. And then we find it and we think, oh, at the end of the day it was just myself. But we're very quick to blame. Very quick to say, maybe it was somebody else that has done this. Very slow to look at ourselves and to accept that maybe we're wrong. And it's also important to practice, because these practices help not only for this life, they help for our future lives. They help to practice to enlightenment. This is the most important, to practice the Dharma, to practice towards enlightenment. So practice also helps us for death. Every one of us is going to face death. Even the rich are going to face death. All of their possessions, or they're going to leave behind the famous people, all their supporters, all the people that admire them, they're going to leave them behind. Even this body we're going to leave behind. Even rich people, they might starve. They can have all the money in the world, they can buy all the food in the world, but they may have problems with health, they can't eat. So it's very important to be humble, to stay kind, plant seeds. What seeds are we planting? What is our motivation? Are they positive or are they negative? Because those seeds are going to affect us in the future. Just because we don't believe in cause and effect doesn't mean that cause and effect doesn't happen, isn't real. Cause and effect is a reality. What we're doing is planting seeds that are going to affect us in the future. And where are all these seeds? Where is it all happening? It's happening in our mind stream. When we go, our mind stream goes with, carries on. This is the one thing that carries on. So it's very important to observe, what habits am I creating? Don't be lazy. If we get lazy, then we just create problems for ourselves in the future. Most important, have awareness. With that awareness, observe these thoughts. What thoughts am I thinking? Are they positive? Are they negative? And then transform them. If they're negative, support them if they're positive. If we don't do anything with them, we just leave them. We carry on with them, we entertain them. Then, the more we entertain them, the more possibility there is that they're going to become actions. Even the smallest thoughts, if we don't monitor them, if we don't transform them, they've got more and more chance to become more and more, they might become really great, just like trees. A tree starts with a very little seed like this, becomes a great tree. That great tree could be there for a long time and plant many more seeds. So that's fine. If you're doing positive things, plant those seeds. But if negative, be very careful. Just like in The Little Prince, he has his baobabs and he has to pull out the baobabs, otherwise they split his planet apart. So the same with these emotions. They really affect our life. They affect our happiness. They can really tear our life apart. Rather, observe these arising thoughts. Transform them if they're negative. Support them if they're positive. Life becomes better, more relaxed, happier, of more benefit not only for ourselves but also for others. If we only want to eat, sleep, drink, be warm, this is the same as animals. But we're not the same as animals. We have this incredible wisdom, loving kindness, the potential to really benefit others and to really transform, to change ourselves. But we've also got the ability to really do negative things, to really harm others. So be very careful of what we do. And if you practice, you can have really great energy. It can be, as I said, of great benefit. You look at these great teachers. They get to the age in the 80s and they still have great energy. They can teach for hours. Their concentration is unmoving. Look at Lama Achuk Rinpoche. Look at Mozart Rinpoche. Even in their 80s, they were teaching almost every day. Most important aspect of these teachings is what? Is to transform our mind stream, to put these teachings into practice. And then our life can really become more and more positive. If not, if this is not what we're doing, then we have to question, are we really practicing the Dharma? This is the foundation. These are the foundations for renunciation, for practicing bodhicitta, for maintaining the right view. So, with this in mind, it's very important. These practices are very important to listen, to contemplate, and to really put them into practice. And most important, as we said, is to transform our mind stream. Our mind stream has incredible power. It really has incredible power. So it's good to direct it, for benefit, for good. And so that is just a basic introduction first to these teachings of the 37 practices of the bodhicitta of Tokme and Zangpo. And let's then raise bodhicitta. We raised bodhicitta in the beginning. We've spoken about the practices of a bodhisattva. Let's then dedicate these merits. Sonam daye tamcha tsapanye topne nyepe tranam khacheja keka nachir balam trupai zipi tsoli troa